Hello friends, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. Solskjaer has of course been sacked. That's why we're doing this impromptu video. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the sort of overall picture maybe of the Solskjaer sacking. I think it's interesting. I did a video a few weeks ago after the Liverpool game, and I was one of those who put it on record that I felt like it was over for Solskjaer. But the question I had was, when will it be over? I expected him to survive till the end of the season. I actually did a video for ESPN on Friday saying I don't see, with the personnel in terms of the possible manager to be brought in, I didn't see Solskjaer going as long as he kept up to a certain level of results, really, more than performance. Because I think for Manchester United, their season feels over now. I'll explain why I feel like their season is over now. But when I did that video, the point was that Solskjaer had been given the opportunity. Now, what I think is really interesting in this entire situation, as someone who is a neutral, who's not a Man United fan, seeing the anger, the anguish, we're going through such tough times, that has been sort of spoken out by everyone. And with all of that, I've got to say, it felt like a lot. It felt like a lot. And what I found really interesting was the point where it got to where it had crossed the line, and Solskjaer, it looked like it was inevitable in terms of the ceiling that he'd had. And I think, to be honest, I was kind of on the start of that line. I wasn't early in saying Ole out. I've always been, give the guy a chance. Can he reach the expectations of the club? Can he have a squad to give himself that opportunity? He also, in the years prior to that and going into this season, and that's where it really turned, let's be honest. Finishing second last year was, achieving something that I don't think many Man United fans thought would happen at the start of the season last season. But this season, the squad had improved in terms of personnel. And with that, you felt like there would be an improvement of performances. And any of the sort of excuses that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer could have used previously, not having the squad that he wants, not having a right winger, for example, not having a quality centre-back, all of those caveats, I guess, were kind of put to the side. And that was the next question was, regardless of everything else, he hasn't got these excuses. Is he just good enough? And again, this is a broader kind of conversation here. And I put out a tweet asking people to kind of give their final sentences summarising Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I'll have a look at that in a second. But what I do think is really interesting, and I feel like it's kind of everywhere at the moment, and I don't know if you guys agree with me, this idea of what makes someone capable feels like it's become incredibly shallow. Think of all the different managers out there and how they've kind of got to where they've got to. You often start at a small club like Thomas Tuchel in Mainz, and then you go to Borussia Dortmund and you work your way up. There's this I've noticed recently, people talking about, is he an elite manager? Is he a super coach? This word super, guys, we've got to be really careful with this word, because when we desensitize and put these brackets on people in terms of managers, saying Man United need a super coach. The reason you're saying you need a super coach is you're saying this is a team worthy of something super, something that's better than the norm. And you detach Man United from the rest of the world. And I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's important because, yes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer overall has failed because it is Manchester United. You are based upon the fact of winning trophies, and the standard bearer is Sir Alex Ferguson. So you're always going to probably fail, or you're certainly not going to be the greatest ever, which is how we talk about everything these days. But the idea of giving someone an opportunity and seeing how they get on and giving them enough time to see if they could succeed at a certain job, it's weird that that's kind of become frowned upon. And now the new manager has to be Zinedine Zidane, or it has to be whoever it might be, right? It's got to be this guy who's in the next stratosphere that guarantees you victories. I think what you have learned with Manchester United is that doesn't work. It has to be on a case-by-case basis. It has to be on a person-by-person basis. The fact that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was manager of this team, of this club, isn't a failure for me, personally. I don't think it is. I think he'd earned the opportunity, and I think that you'd seen that a CV wasn't enough. I think we now need to look at managers at much more depth, but also much less cynicism. Managers at any level have to be given the opportunity, and then once they get that opportunity, they need a fair crack of the whip, and if they're not up to it, then you make that decision. Now, going back to what I said at the start, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't capable. The ceiling was there, and ultimately it comes down to, do you have the answers? And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was given a lot of the tools, and I was reading the Sunday Times today, and it seemed like that the hierarchy have put forward this idea, which I agree with, which is that the sum of the parts was less than it should be, And individually, that's another thing that was put at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that you were relying on Bruno Fernandes, you were relying on moments of brilliance for this team to win games. And I think that's all fair. And I think this idea that he wasn't the guy is also right. But the opportunity that he had, I think that's a good way to go. And I think it's a good way to run your club. To just go, the guy was given an opportunity. He knew the club, and that's something that Gary Neville's come out and said. He rebuilt the soul of the club after managers like Van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, two people who you would consider super coaches, had both failed. But I guess there's another question there. Is what is failure and what is success for Man United right now? Again, going back to sort of the broader outlook of all of this, I find that fascinating as well, but I think history is repeating itself here a little bit. I've said this previously in podcasts and videos, I'm sure, as well. But in the 90s, there had been this dynasty of Liverpool dominating English football. And with the rise of media, you then had pundits. And those pundits, of course, were the greats of the game. And when it came to greats of the game at the time, it was the likes of Lawrenson, of Alan Hansen, big Liverpool names. And there weren't as many voices, obviously, back then, because there weren't as many channels showing the football. But what it provided was this very difficult comparison between the greats of before and the reality of the situation that you kind of live in. And it's not a very peaceful place. And then you add to that the amount of voices that are out there. I'm a hypocrite in that. I'm adding to that. But I'm just commenting on the fact that I think it's really interesting that this has come back around now, and this is the problem that Man United have now. And you see that in some of the discussions, myself included, right this second. But you've seen BT Sport slightly digging out Gary Neville for essentially saying, well, not saying the words "Ollie should be sacked." I mean, it was all clear that the quality wasn't there and the performances weren't there. But Gary Neville felt determined not to say those. The thing with that is that he was then got sort of told out and chastised for not saying the words, which is, it's a weird little side argument to have in this situation, like this need to say the words, when I thought he personally made it quite clear. I don't think you're not blind. None of these people are blind in terms of seeing that, this isn't good enough. But there are a few sides of this, and coming back to that point of what Liverpool fans and the club, and most importantly, the manager and the players had to deal with. They had to deal with constant critique through a lens of the highest quality, and that can be suffocating, and that can make it very, very difficult and incredibly high pressured. Now, these are elite footballers, and so they have to get on and deal with that. But you're living in a space now where with Sky Sports and BT Sport, you've got Roy Keane and Gary Neville, two huge Man United voices who won it all. And then on BT Sport, you have Paul Scholes and Rio Ferdinand and Owen Hargreaves and Michael Owen. And these voices, rightly or wrongly, and I'm not blaming BT Sport or Sky for having those people and those voices, because it's understandable. They're interesting, they're insightful, but they also heap the pressure on this football club. And so when you become that figurehead, that manager, it's a really tough job. It's the toughest job in football right now, despite the amount of money that Solskjaer has spent. And I think that's a valid critique. I think this is the second most expensive squad and team assembled in history. He should have done better. He should have had a better plan. He should have had more answers because the ingredients were there. But this is a tough job, a really, really tough job. And again, if you look at the solution for Liverpool, it was an incredible personality in Jurgen Klopp, a positive personality who played proactive football. That there's a very clear plan, there's a high level of intelligence, and then the broadening out of the coaching team there as well, it was forward thinking. And that's where you bring the board into this discussion. For Man United, are they ahead of the curve? With the amount of money that they've got, they should be ahead of the curve, or at the very least at the forefront of it. Now, Solskjaer did some of the elements of that you always want in terms of the values that Man United put forward, which is I think he gave 16 academy products their debut. I mean, that is within the values, the culture of Manchester United. But all those answers that you need to be smarter than the opposition, because that is a big part of this. You can have all the players you want, but this is a game of football, and a game of football is a game of several variables, and a low-scoring game as well. So they are very, very fine margins. And from a broader point of view, is this Man United squad balanced and understanding of how they should play, the formation they should be playing, the philosophy that they should be playing? You know, if you look at Man City, you look at Liverpool and how they put themselves about and how they set themselves out, it's all very well known. And also, every fine margin, every inch that they can get, they are striving for, and they are ahead of the curve. And that's something that, from a broader point of view, needs to be put together when it comes to Man United, because it feels like they're behind and it feels like there isn't that clarity. Did a video earlier in the week talking about being inside the mind of Ole, and Dan Abraham's sports psychologist. You go check out that video. I'm really proud of it, but based on the insights that he offers, it really is about clarity a lot of the time of the entirety of the squad. That clarity was lost with some of the recruitment, I believe, and I've spoken about that in videos as well. But ultimately, Solskjaer has to be a big enough personality and a smart enough manager with a team that is ahead of the curve for you to win Premier League titles and trophies. Because the quality of managers out there is so, so high right now. So was he up to the challenge? No. Did he have the right principles and endeavour? Yes. And moving forward, how do Man United crack the problem that Liverpool have had in the past as, you know, one of the two top teams in British history? That is the problem for Man United. And looking forward, we can have a look now quickly. First of all, Michael Carrick will now take charge of a team for forthcoming games while the club looks to appoint an interim manager till the end of the season. That is a very, very interesting point that is being put forward when it comes to this club statement. I'll be honest, I haven't even read the rest of it, because what's the point? Because it is all just niceties when it comes to that. Of course, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a legend of the club and a great man, I've just noticed it says as well. But when it comes to Man United moving forward, this is why I talk about how the manager is a very difficult position to fill here. And when it comes to the personality needed for Man United, I'm not sure that guy's out there right now. Brendan Rodgers, I think, in a different time and place, maybe it's going a little bit better at Leicester City, there isn't that element of stagnation there, and also the fact that he hadn't been a Liverpool manager. If you can swap that out, then he maybe comes into this and the pressure cooker. He can get through it because I think he has got the ambition. I think he's got the intelligence, and I think he's got the belief and confidence in himself and I think that gets bought by, you get buy-in from the players. But I think that Liverpool connection is a problem. Pochettino, I think he's obviously their guy. He's the guy that they want. That's why they're going for an interim manager between now and the end of the season. Pochettino might be that guy. Is he a little bit too nice? I don't know. Has he got that personality to, when the pressure is on, and the pressure will come from all angles, has he got it? Possibly. But you're going to have to wait for it. And then Zinedine Zidane, they're talking about the language barrier being a problem. In terms of gravitas, of course, he has that. But again, does it fit? For me, I feel like Ten Hag has the personality and the understanding of the values that Manchester United need. But again, it's one that they're probably not going to get right now. Which leads me to another thought, which is ultimately, is Man United's season over? If you look at the changes that get made, look at last season, Frank Lampard didn't get that opportunity to see if he really was capable. They brought in Thomas Tuchel, and I think Sir Alex Ferguson said himself, if you're going to make a bad decision, make it early. And what that means is that, rightly or wrongly, sometimes you don't know if you're going to make the right call. But if you are going to make it wrong early. And it worked. That wasn't the case, of course, with Chelsea and Tuchel. They made the call early, made that change, and brought in Thomas Tuchel because the opportunity was there. Thomas Tuchel has that personality. We can see that. We can see that in Guardiola. We can see that in Klopp. With Pochettino, maybe, in terms of the ingredients that he's got at PSG at the moment, you're seeing a different side of him. His ability to kind of find a plan and keep everyone happy. Maybe that's something that's really important, but I think you also need to have that steel, which of course he did have as a player. And I think he set those standards with Spurs. So I understand why Man United want to go and get Pochettino. I think those are the two top names right now. But there's no way that he would walk away from an opportunity of having a season with Mbappe, Messi and Neymar. So it's a very awkward time for Man United. And for me, the fact that they've made this change now, it's to try and change the gears on those players, try and get a reaction, and try and get themselves through this Champions League group. Because I think that if they don't make it through this, the season truly is over. If you look at what happened at Chelsea last season, they made that change. Then you had an exciting manager, and you were able to get that change. For Man United, it sounds like you're not going to get it. You're not going to be able to get it because whoever comes in, yes, there might be an element in terms of the short term where I want to play football and you'll get that reaction from these players, but you're not going to get the long-term buy-in from any manager right now. And that's a problem. And that's going to affect performances. It will, surely. Even, because energy matters, commitment matters. And if you've got a manager that you know is not going to be there to the end of the season, especially coming off the back of what's happened with Solskjaer, context is everything, right? You had Jose Mourinho. He was the villain. Did he really care about Man United? And so what often happens with managers is you go, okay, that didn't work. What's the opposite of that? And that's what you've seen for Man United and a lot of different clubs, especially once they have a manager like Sir Alex Ferguson, who's there for years and years and years. You go with a David Moyes, or he's pretty similar. Could he do the same thing? Often it doesn't work because ultimately you're just not the same as the other guy. Then you go and try something different. Louis van Gaal. Then you go, right, let's just sell our souls and get a winner. Try something different instead of going with the purity of Van Gaal, with that Ajax model. Mourinho doesn't work either because he's the villain. And then you go, right, let's go with the nice guy who we know is a club legend. That now has been and gone. And so it's interesting from what was the perception before, which was where's the legend who gets the club? You now have a Man United that does have a level of foundation there, which I think is something that you can give to Solskjaer. But again, the eye will be looking at someone who's the super coach, who's the guy who's elite, the thing that the previous manager was missing. And at the moment, that's not available to them right now. So with that in mind, I feel like Man United's season is over. I really do. Because it's going to be a little bit, not pathetic, but it's going to lack that vigour, isn't it? Certainly in the Premier League. With the Champions League, you might have a difference there, or if a manager becomes available, there might be the opportunity there, and I'm sure Man United have got the cash to go and get that done. So it'll be interesting to see who they go for. I think the names that are being mooted at the moment, Zidane doesn't really work for me. It just doesn't. I think the language barrier is a problem because I think you need to get a reaction pretty quickly. I like the idea of Pochettino or Ten Hag. If it was me, I'd go and get Ten Hag, but you might have to wait. And so if you do have to wait, that's a very awkward position for Man United to be in. It could get worse before it gets better for Man United and Man United fans. These are my thoughts. I'd love to know yours, guys. Let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about this scenario? Oh, I did want to go through a couple of your comments. I really did, because I thought this was interesting. So I said, it's the right decision. I stand by that, of course. What are everyone's summaries of Ole in a sentence? Club legend, should have stayed till his retirement. Heartbreaking to see him leave. I think that might be a little joke. This is LFC Matt. Without his past, he wouldn't even have been on the shortlist in the first place. I think there's truth in that. I don't see a problem with it either, because again, I think you have to buy into the person, not the CV sometimes. Best manager they ever had, bring him back. Okay. Rob Turner, don't let the last 3 months paper over 3 years of how to change the culture at the football club. I still think that's the biggest problem, isn't it? The board has to be better, and the board has to be more certain in its approach, and then the manager needs to fit into that approach. I think that's very clearly the right way to go these days, and so that needs to be understandable. Manu, intangible yet necessary slow progression, stepping stone, possibly. J. James, bittersweet. He was one of us in the beginning. beginning, but after the love had gone and the romance of the story wore off, his skills were lacking. I think that's fair. And there are a few good ones as well. He was at the wheel for 3.5 years, but the car failed the MOT, Haroon says. I think that's quite good. That was it, isn't it? There was something missing. He didn't have the answers, and he wasn't able to galvanise the players enough. I think when it was about taking the pressure off, that was one thing. But when it was about almost putting the pressure on and getting an end product, they were really, really struggling. Steve Rawlings, my enjoyment of watching my club was at an all-time low under Mourinho, and Ole simply made me enjoy watching my team again. So there are some positives. But ultimately, was it a failure? You know, when it comes down to the basics of trophies, of course, he wasn't able to get it over the line. And I think that actually will be where he will be remembered is, you know, he was okay to a point, but when the pressure was on and the expectations were high, he really, really did seem to struggle. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. The Fallout will be out tomorrow, having a look at some of the games from the weekend and some tactical bits and pieces from that. So make sure you do hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss a video as soon as it drops. Thanks for listening to me. I'll see you soon. Ta-da.